Good evening. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be part of this public hearing. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the District Department of Transportation to the 2022 Proposed Service Changes public hearing on September 14, 2022. Our agenda today will cover some project background, general overview timeline of the project. We will talk a little bit about the transit development plan, public outreach, as well, and then dive into the proposed service changes. We'll go through a timeline and an explanation of some of the items that will influence the implementation of the proposed changes based on the feedback that we received tonight and throughout the comment period. And we'll open it up for questions and answers. But we're really here mostly to listen and listen to your feedback throughout this evening. Before we dive in, I want to make sure that you have the tools to be able to participate effectively during the virtual public hearing. And so we will review some basic controls to help you be able to participate in the best possible way. Please note, this is an open meeting as is required by DC Code 2578. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be made available to the public. The video file with both audio and video. We'll share the project team website and DDOT's YouTube channel, youtube.com/DDOT-videos, within 7 days after the meeting has ended. This meeting is being live streamed to DDOT's Facebook page at facebook.com/DDOT-DC. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please do not ask to speak. You may enter any questions or comments in the Q&A, which will be reviewed shortly. If you at any point are experiencing technical difficulties, there's technical support during this meeting. Please call 202-309-3491. Using WebEx, audio and video. Audio and muting. Everyone is on mute. You cannot unmute yourself. We can unmute you during the Q&A and comment period. This helps ensure the meeting runs smoothly and there are no auditory disruptions during the presentation. To request to speak, you will need to use the raise hand feature. Closed captions. WebEx has automatically system-generated closed captions available during the meeting. Click the CC icon in the lower left corner of the window to turn on closed captions. There are additional settings, so you may adjust the appearance of the captions if needed. Using the WebEx mobile application, click the 3 dots icon, scroll down, and select the closed captions option. Make sure the toggle switch is blue. Video. Your video camera is off by default, and you will not be able to share video. If you have a question or comment that you would like to speak up about, please raise your hand. This indicates the project team that you would like to speak. To virtually raise your hand, click the raise hand icon on the bottom center of the WebEx window. Alternatively, you may press the Ctrl-Shift-R keys on your keyboard to raise your hand. If you join via browser or mobile app, click the 3 dots icon and select raise hand. If you dial in by phone, dial *3 to use the raise hand function. If you have a question during the presentation, send it via the Q&A feature. To send a question, click the three-dot icon in the bottom right side of the WebEx window and select Q&A. A new panel or window will appear. In the Ask field, select All Panelists. Click the text box to type your question and enter key to send it. If you join via browser or mobile app, click the Q&A or question mark icon to access the Q&A to ask a question. If you dial in by phone, dial *3 to use the raise hand function. This indicates to the project team that you would like to speak and ask a question. Using WebEx chat. Only use this if you have a comment or a question during the presentation, send it via the chat feature. If you have called in by telephone, you cannot access the chat. To send a chat, click Chat in the bottom right side of the WebEx window. A new panel or window will appear in the Send To file. Select All Panelists. Click the text box to type your question or comment and press the Enter key to send. This meeting will be using ASL interpretation. Click and drag the slider bar to adjust the size of the stage window. Close any open panels, participants, chat, and Q&A to maximize space. Use the built-in Zoom tools to adjust the size of the presentation. And with that, we will proceed now with starting our meeting and sharing some information that led to the proposed changes that we're sharing with you today. The Transit Development Plan is a plan that the DC Circulator program does every 3 years. This plan's focus on recommending expansions of service, as well as evaluating opportunities for improvements to the existing service, whether that's operational or to enhance performance. The Transit Development Plan that was released on April 24, 2022 was the Transit Development Plan 2020. And this plan focused on the expansion of the circulator to Ward 7 and proposes opportunities for improvements to the circulator system operations and performance for the overall system. This process started in 2020, January 2020, and it has extended due to impacts through the planning process by the pandemic. The project was, this planning process is heavily influenced by public outreach, which was impacted through the pandemic, but it normally follows a very similar process since 2014, which was the first Transit Development Plan that was released for Circulator. It focuses on data collection, which extended throughout the initial period of the project from January all the way into the fall of 2020. We were able to conduct some public outreach that provided some data and then additional technical information that was gathered that allowed us to begin to evaluate the system as it was operating at the time previous to the pandemic, as well as it began to conduct an alternative analysis of potential connections around Ward 7 to implement the new route. We then transitioned to preliminary recommendations on a draft of the Transit Development Plan that was released in the spring of 2021, where thankfully we were able to begin to conduct more outreach as some of the effects of the pandemic began to be addressed and the city began to open as vaccinations became available. In that draft, we submitted a preliminary recommendation of a route for Ward 7, as well as preliminary recommendations for system improvements that we wanted to share with the public and focus our feedback on. That outreach extended from the spring all the way again to the fall of 2021. And with that, the team then went through that information and proceeded to provide final recommendations on a draft that was released recently to the public. That document, it's available on our website. It goes more in depth into everything that was evaluated. And I'll, in the next few slides, talk a little bit more about the outreach and a little bit more about what we heard from the public. Right now in the timeline, as you can see, we have released the document. There's a public period now for comments, which has led us to this public hearing for the 2 proposed changes that the agency would like to move forward with. And then there will be a period of preparation for implementation based on the feedback that we receive from the public. In this slide, I won't dive too much. I kind of walk everyone through some of the timeline in the previous slide. This has some dates. This presentation will be made available also to the public. But I do want to highlight in particular the projects that are happening that will support the implementation of one of the proposals, and that is the Ward 7 route. We have 2 projects side by side that are happening in preparation to the implementation of a route in Ward 7. One is the expansion in capacity to house electric vehicles. In our South Capitol Street facility, we were able to complete the design for the facility this August 2022. And that design is in the process of being put out for a construction bid as we speak. And our hope is that we will be able to initiate those improvements this fall, and then be able to complete the first phase of the improvements that would allow for the capacity of the facility to house from 14 to 28 vehicles, and will accommodate the 14 vehicles that are needed to implement the Ward 7 route. Parallel to that, the city is also in the process of procuring 14 additional electric vehicles that will serve the Ward 7 route. And those vehicles, we are in the process of evaluating. A pilot vehicle is normally the first vehicle from the build that it's reviewed. That's very typical in bus procurements. There's revisions that we make based on the product that we receive. And then that informs the build of the remaining 13 vehicles. Those vehicles are also expected to be received in the city in the summer of 2023. And we might begin to see that those vehicles arriving in the city on June 2023. So those 2 vehicles, those 2 projects, right, impact our ability to launch the service as we are hoping in the summer of 2023. So a little bit of feedback that I wanted to share on the Transit Development Plan public outreach that we were able to conduct, and that help influence a lot of the information and decisions that recommendations that came about on the Transit Development Plan. We were able to, in both our outreach regarding system expansion and our outreach on the system evaluation. So system expansion was the focus on the Ward 7 route. we were able to reach 1,733 individuals that formally provided feedback. This is in addition to feedback that we might have heard also in meetings. And then 1,456 individuals that contributed feedback on the system evaluation of the existing system. A lot of this feedback, aside from surveys that we conducted, was also provided through conversations with ANC and civic associations, as well as virtual focus groups that we conducted, and some Meet the Rider events that we were able to also have prior to the pandemic. Some of what we heard on the focus groups, which was a focus feedback that we undertook specifically for the new Ward 7 route, came from residents from Ward 7 and Ward 8. That feedback informed a lot of the planning process in the fall, once we proposed 7 different alternatives on how the Ward 7 route could connect either within the route or to other parts of the city. We incorporated a lot of that feedback and were able to highlight through that process some of the destinations, and I won't go in depth, but some of the things that you will see in the route were influenced a lot by what we heard in terms of destinations that residents wanted to reach, as well as areas that we had identified that had some transit network gaps. So you might have had metro service or access to metro rail, but there were areas in Ward 7 that just didn't have additional connectivity or were increasing in demand for service, right? The service that was there was no longer sufficient. Through the outreach, like I mentioned, in the spring of 2021, once we released the official draft of the document, we were able to participate in various ANC meetings. We had office hours. Some residents took advantage of that. We're having office hours also throughout this process, and I'll talk about that later. We had a text message and email blast campaign, social media campaign, just to let people know the document was out and we were collecting feedback, as well as Meet the Rider pop-up events throughout Ward 7, where there's existing bus service, but also there were riders that could provide very specific feedback. During the fall of 2021, when we had concluded our outreach, a lot of the basically proposals were by the team based on what we had heard during the 2020 outreach were confirmed. And we then transitioned to advance the preferred alternative from the public, which was for Ward 7, the Union Station to Deanwood route. And that's, if you see our proposal for that extension, that this was the result of that effort. With this said, I'm gonna pass on to my colleague Jared section on describing what the proposed changes are. Thank you.
Thank you, Circe. All right, so I'm just going to do a quick overall presentation on the high-level sort of details and technical information about the 2 recommendations. So the first of these recommendations is stop consolidation on the Georgetown Union Station route. This recommendation was first proposed in the 2017 TDP. So in the 2020 TDP, we took the recommendation and just did additional quantitative analysis. So we look to do stop consolidation because it can improve productivity, running time, and reliability when the bus doesn't have to stop quite as often. The DC Circulator standard is having 4 stops per mile. That's sort of the system-wide target that we try to meet with all the routes as we do recommendations. The current average stop spacing for this route is 4.9 stops per mile, so nearly 5. So that's very much the closest stop spacing of all the routes in the system. So we looked at the routes proposed, or I'm sorry, excuse me. We looked at the stops proposed from the 2017 TDP and assessed them based off total ridership. Most of them were pretty low in ridership, and most of them had nearby stops to where even if this stop was consolidated, there's another option for that community very close by. So in total, we're looking to remove 11 stops on this route. If we could go forward to the next slide. So this is the list of stops that we're removing. For several of these, it's a stop pair, so both the eastbound and westbound at certain intersections. And for a few of these stops, it was on a part of the route that operates in one direction. And if you wanted to look at these in more detail, the stop list is available on DC Circulator's website, as well as that same map showing which stops are being consolidated. Next slide, please. So the other recommendation that we would like to push forward is the new Ward 7 route. This route was part of the initial goals of the Transit Development Plan for 2020. We were tasked with introducing and restoring service to Ward 7. So after the extensive public engagement and review that Cersei mentioned a few slides ago, we're presenting this new route that connects the Deanwood Metro Station to Union Station in the heart of the city. It starts at the Deanwood Metro, runs along Eastern Avenue up to Division Avenue, runs down Division Avenue past Nanny Helen Burroughs Avenue, and makes its way to East Capitol. After it turns on the East Capitol, it serves the Benning Road area and Benning Road Metro Station, stops again before crossing the river, and also serves the Stadium Armory Metro Rail Station, and then continues to operate on East Capitol Street up until it reaches the Capitol, and then turns north to meet up at Union Station with 3 other of the circulator routes, the Red Line of Metro, and numerous Metro bus routes, as well as intercity bus routes. In total, this route is about 14.5 miles long and would require 12 vehicles during the peak period, during rush hour, to operate at normal circulator service. And those are the vehicles that Cersei mentioned DDOT is in the process of acquiring. And if we could do the next slide. In terms of how we came to this final alignment, during our market analysis of Ward 7 and where people in Ward 7 are trying to go, overwhelmingly, the general traffic data, as well as the transit-specific data, showed that people were trying to go eastward towards Capitol Hill, towards Union Station, and further points westward, heading into the core of the city, downtown, and a lot of adjacent areas. This route expands transit to areas that are previously underserved. There's no bus line running on East Capitol on the west side of the Anacostia River, so that would be brand new area for transit. And it also provides a unique one-seat ride to Union Station and to Capitol Hill from the Benning Road corridor, Division Avenue, and Deanwood. And this is especially effective because the circulator fare is $1, So this provides another option for getting across Anacostia to Union Station. That's a low fare option compared to Metro Rail. When we presented route possibilities towards the public in the second round of outreach, we presented 7 alternatives. This was the most popular alternative. It was the first choice for 36% of respondents, which is almost triple the next two most popular routes. And in terms of being in the top 3 choices, excuse me, this route was either the top or second or third choice for over 60% of survey respondents. It has 12 stops in Ward 7, about 63% of its total stops, and the remaining stops are in Ward 6. And if we could do the final slide. So this route provides a unique east-west connection between Ward 7 and Ward 6. It supplements the existing WMATA Route 97 service, which only runs on peak hours, so during rush hour. And even then, that Route 97, I don't believe, runs this exact alignment. It's a partial overlap. And it also provides a connection between Deanwood Metro Rail Station, the Benning Road Metro Rail Station, Stadium Armory, and Union Station, again, at the same $1 fare. So this provides another low fare option to connect these stations that does not exist. The full route round trip length, again, 14.5 miles. The round trip travel time is around 110 minutes. And we also looked at key destinations within a quarter mile of the route, including 1 grocery store, multiple shopping centers, 23 schools, and over 44,000 people and 25,000 jobs are within a quarter mile of this route. And I think there's another slide. I remember. I think we're back to the timeline, which, Circe, I believe this is where we're going back to you, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that was a summary of our proposed service changes that we would like to move forward with in 2023. The Transit Development Plan for 2020 also includes more long-term recommendations that at this time we're constrained as a program to implement due to spacing and number of vehicles that a lot of the implementation of some of those recommendations would require. But at this time, with these 2 proposed changes, we are having a comment period, which will extend till September 23, 2022. That is not this Friday, but the following Friday. So there's still time for this information to be shared if you have the opportunity to share it with other members of the community or potential riders that the service could support. So we will love to hear from you. After September 23rd, we will close the comment period. We will evaluate the feedback that was received by the public and see how that impacts the proposed changes, whether they both could move forward or if there's any additional adjustments or feedback. An example of this could be on the bus stop consolidation. Maybe we don't move with all the 11 stops. We move forward with less, but that right now we have the 11 that we're proposing. And the same with Ward 7 route. There's an opportunity to provide feedback one last time on the route, as well as on the stops that are being proposed. That's you might be okay with the route, but not the stop that we're proposing, or one particular routing of the segment of the route. Please share that feedback and those comments with us. Our hope in the next week and a half is to continue to share the information. We've been attending ANC meetings in Ward 7 and reaching out to other sections of the city, since the service the city throughout various wards. And we're hosting, like I mentioned, information hours, one next Saturday, and then another one the following Wednesday. Saturday will be from 11:30 to 1:30, and then p.m. And then on next Wednesday will be from 12 to 1. Aside from that, and we will share this at the end, there's information that the team will provide for myself as well as a colleague, and I'll speak to that, where you can contact us directly, as well as provide any comment at any time through our website in writing or via email or via mail. Our hope is that we will, once we obtain this feedback, like I mentioned, we will then go through it, make any necessary adjustments, and then release what the final proposed changes will be later in the fall. And then we'll move to work with the community on the implementation of the set proposals. With that said, this is, again, some of the general information about our next steps of tracking the comments, like I mentioned. Again, the comment period ends at 11:59 p.m. on September 23rd, 2022. We will provide a complete summary report of this process and the outreach, including the comments. We won't share personal information, but we will share the comments that were provided and the feedback, as well as a report of the changes that we will move forward with, and then move hopefully to develop an operation implementation plan for the Ward 7 route following the conclusion of this process. So we have, and I think this will be shared on our chat, I think a link, our Title VI forms. We used to do this in paper. I think if you went to DDOT meetings previously, now we, as recipients of federal assistance and in ongoing programs and activities and public meetings, we have to make sure they're conducted in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Acts of 1964. And this ensures that throughout these meetings, there's no violation of any of the protected clauses under the Title VI Civil Rights Act. This is completely voluntary, but we will appreciate if you can provide this at the end of the meeting. And we'll, I'm gonna go really quick to the last slide and then go back, open it up for any questions or clarifications to the public. My name, which I forgot to introduce myself in the very beginning, is Circulator Reyes. I am the Deputy Associate Director for Bus Operations that helps oversee the DC Circulator at the District Department of Transportation. Spring Worth is a project manager in our bus planning team at the Transit Delivery Division. She and I have been working alongside the Foursquare Integrated Consultant team to produce this document of the Transit Development Plan, the recommendations, as well as working with the community to out this proposed changes efforts, and make sure that you have individuals that you can talk to, that you can share your feedback with. So our information, it's here in the presentation. Those are our direct numbers and our direct emails. You can feel free to reach out to us if your question is not addressed tonight, and or if you have questions, following this evening. And this will be in the presentation that will be posted on the website. I'll go back to this during the Q&A period. I'll just leave it here. And with that, that's the conclusion of the presentation. And we will open it up for questions. At this time, see some questions that were shared on the chat. We will likely share any feedback between Jared and myself. So you might have both of us clarifying or answering any questions. The first question shared on the chat was, for the Georgetown Union Station stop consolidation, did you consider eliminating the 13th and K stop instead of the 11th and K stop? There will still be convenience stop at 14th and K with all the same possible bus transfers. Without the 11th and K stop, there's a large gap between 13th and 7th without stops. Jared, do you want to take this question since you guys conducted the field work?
Yeah, give me just a sec. I'm trying to pull up the right map just to make sure that I don't get my stops mixed up. Give me just a minute to get the right data.
Yeah. While he's searching for that, just wanted to clarify, a lot of our process is going out, writing the routes, as well as doing counts at a lot of these stops. The counts allow us to track boardings and deboardings. And I'll let Jared speak to this, but that will influence some of that heavily influence some of the decisions around how much activity we were seeing in certain stops. But this is a great question. Jared, you ready?
Yes, I'm just trying to pull up the right spreadsheet to make sure I'm correct, but I'm pretty sure it was a matter of when looking at the individual stop ridership of the routes we were removing, that it was just a question of the 13th and K stop saw a lot more ridership than the 11th and K. I'm still trying to find the right spreadsheet to make sure I have the numbers to back that up. But looking at my notes from previous meetings, I'm pretty sure that was the logic behind that decision.
Okay.
Sorry. Still.
It's okay. It's okay. I think there was a question, and I see hands raises. I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to cover through the chat really quick first. I don't know if Commissioner DeVilliers, if you want, I didn't see your question on, you wanted to speak about the route on Washington Circle. I don't know if you wanted to unmute or if you want to provide some additional feedback. Or you want us just to explain in general any changes around there?
Commissioner 2FO6, you should be unmuted now.
Great, thank you. I was trying to also use my camera, but I will not. So yeah, something that I just wanted to bring up again about Washington Circle is the detour, for lack of a better term, for the bus to make turning movements onto 20th and 21st Streets instead of going through the circle itself, as it does on the west side of the circle really adds to the travel time and travel time variability for the bus, making those left turns. As you all know, just it takes a lot of time, especially if there are a lot of drivers on the road, and that's usually at the time when the bus needs to be saving time the most, as opposed to losing more time. And I know I've spoken to some people at Circulator before about this, and just the responses I've gotten seem as though people I've spoken to didn't fully understand what I was getting at. But essentially, what I was suggesting is that instead of Circulator westbound turning left onto 21st Street, I believe it is, it would actually go into the service lane westbound, make a stop right before Washington Circle, then go through the circle as it does today, and then make that same stop that it does today at 24th. And then the same would go for eastbound, where the bus would make the stop that it does on the west side of the circle, continue through the circle, not turn right on Pennsylvania, but turn right onto K, make a stop right there on the east side of the circle, and then continue through to K Street from there. And just being able to do that would really reduce travel time and travel time variability, because you're reducing all the turning movements associated with bringing the bus to Pennsylvania Ave. And I understand the idea that you want to get the bus as close to Foggy Bottom Station as possible, but those stops on the east side of the circle wouldn't put people that much further, and I think people would be willing to walk or roll the extra feet if it means that the bus is going to be on time and more reliable because it's not making unnecessary turning movements.
So Commissioner, I'll take that. You will be very happy to know that you're not the only person suggesting that. There's other individuals that are suggesting it. One of the actual recommendations from the team that's putting together the project for the K Street Transitway have also brought that to our attention. So that is a recommendation that's being strongly considered, not only for Circulator service, but also some of the WMATA service. So that's noted. But thank you for sharing it tonight. But it is it is something that we have looked at. There's actually Jared and I had a meeting with the K Street team, and there's an actual stop. It's not active, but there's a bus stop in that area that you mentioned, that corner of the circle too. So that's that's great because it can help have this be quicker to implement.
Yeah, no, that would be great. And again, I think at this point you all know my email address and and contact information. So if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out anytime.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And sorry, I found the numbers. Yeah.
Great.
To go back to the previous question about 13th versus 11th Street, the at least in one direction, I'm pretty sure it's the same both directions. The 13th Street stops on the Georgetown Union Station get almost 100 people more in each direction, so it's almost 50% higher ridership or higher, total stop activity compared to the 11th Street stops. So that would be if we were to flip the recommendation, that would have a negative impact or force more people to walk further. So that was the logic behind that decision.
Okay, I'm going down through the chat and was leaving the slides up so people could get the information. I think everyone has the information at this point. So I'm gonna stop sharing and I will start my video. You can see me and we'll continue going down the questions. I think Gary, I think was next with a question regarding 11th Street, 11th and K eastbound. I don't know if you wanted to elaborate, Mr. Gary Stodart, on that comment or.
I think he was
Okay.
just noting it's not a stop pair. And
Yeah.
now that I'm looking at the map in more detail, he's right. It's only one stop at 11th and K.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I think he was just helping do my
Clarify.
job for me.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Okay, our next question comes for Mr. Bartolo. Hi, it's back to this is not a stop location. This is a system improvement recommendation for the Eastern Market La Femme Casa route. The U Street at 4th and Pennsylvania has been an issue on the Eastern Market Circulator for 4 years now. There must be a process to come together with the community and ANC 6B to find a workable solution. I know DDOT has detailed plan that was rejected by the ANC 6B in 2020 after DDOT's 2-year study. And this is in reference for some context for the rest of the group. Our current Eastern Market La Femme Plaza route terminates on Eastern Market, but due to some of the issues that we have in a lot of the routes in the city, we have to identify turnaround locations that are safe enough for the vehicles and the community pedestrians. And so we have been for 4 years now doing a U-turn movement on 4th Pennsylvania Southeast. This is the turning movement that Mr. Bartolo refers to. And some of the issues that Mr. Bartolo has highlighted that has impacted him and some other members of the community is some of the loud noises that made by the vehicles, as well as some of the vehicles also that laying over near that space, which it's not allowed. That's an operational issue for Circulator, but also by Metro WMATA. This is also an issue that's been raised. And this is just part of the limitations and with the service. And just to add an additional comment from Mr. Bartolo, I'm just kind of reading from the chat, but I'll let you speak, Mr. Bartolo, too, if you want to clarify anything. More recently, the proposed move of Eastern Market to L Street, 7th Street was likewise rejected a year ago by the ANC 6B, who claimed they were not notified. And let's work together to find a productive route without the need for a U-turn that will help increase the low ridership discussed in your most recent TDP. This was actually a great recommendation too. If you look at the Transit Development Plan document, Mr. Bartolo made, which was included, if you see that inclusion, which is extending a bit farther into the area of Capitol Hill, of the Capitol and the National Mall, the existing route. Eastern Market Elephant Plaza, basically making a full loop of the route. This recommendation was included, but like I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we are at this time limited as a program on the ability to continue to expand service beyond the Ward 7 route due to the lack of capacity in our facilities. But that's a different project for a different public meeting that we can share as we look for a permanent home for the DC Circulator program, and that can allow us to expand our fleet and our service. I think, Mr. Bortolo, did you want to share anything else? Did you want to expand on your comments?
In the meantime, there are 3 hands raised that we could swap to.
Oh, okay. I can't see that, so
Yeah, no worries.
if you can.
Sorry, just before we get, I saw 2 more questions in the chat about the 13th and K, and I wanted to clarify. The numbers I brought earlier. Maxine mentioned that 13th and K has a stop in both directions, while 11th and K is only one direction. And if this had an effect on the numbers I reported of the 13th Street stop having nearly 100 more riders, that's just in the inbound direction. So that's comparing one stop to one stop. That's, again, that in that case, no, we're not comparing 2 to 1. In terms of, is it worth evaluating adding a westbound 11th Street stop as an alternative? Well, one, for starters, just with the nature of the recommendations, I'm looking at the current Google Maps and where the Georgetown Union Station, where the route turns up north on 11th Street to get back to K. After it makes that left on K, the first available stop is back at 13th Street, right before Franklin Park. And then we weren't really, so to put in a new stop would actually be having to build a new stop and a new bus pad and require new infrastructure, which was, I think, Susie, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of outside the scope or resources available for this recommendation.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
Okay, so call on user 202-246. You are now unmuted.
Hi, thank you. This is just a general question about circulators, the circulator program, and I'm wondering if there's any plans to work more collaboratively with WMATA so that, for example, the bus ETA tool can include circulator routes. Thank you.
We can definitely take that that comment. It is the same, very similar system. It's the same system, just different customers, but as bus time, we can definitely share that.
Okay, because right now, for example, if I'm somewhere where I have 2 options to get where I'm going, I can take a WMATA route one way, or I could take a circulator route another way, and piece, especially, if I'm piecing together 2 different buses anyway, it is really helpful to just have one website to go to see what bus is coming most quickly, and that sort of thing, as opposed to trying to open multiple apps to check when I'm standing at one bus stop.
That's great. We will take that back to the team.
Thank you.
And share with Metro. There might be a couple of Metro people too in the meeting listening in. So. The next caller.
Yes. Our next hand that was raised is Mark Sussman. You should now be unmuted.
I just wanted to first just express my gratitude and support for the Ward 7 route. I think it's going to be a great addition to the Circulator program. One, I made this request via comment on the website, but also wanted to make it here. I think a stop at Lincoln Park that leverages the 96 bus stops, both north and south of the park at 12th Street, would be a great addition to that route, given that the two closest stops right now are 19th and 8th, which is, 17th and 8th, which is a 9-block distance that one would have to walk in order to leverage this new route. And given the novel nature of the east-west crossing on East Capitol that connects RFK Metro stop with Union Station, I think for Ward 6 residents, which I am one of, I think this would be a great addition, and you'd get great ridership by adding a Lincoln Park stop. That's all. That was my comment.
Thank you. Noted and recorded. This is good feedback. Thank you. The last one. Was there another?
Yeah,
caller?
apologies. Heather, you should now be unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So my question also relates to Ward 7, and I think that it's critically important to develop, as the months go by, presentations for a wider experience, a wider range of experiences of transportation networks, because this presentation night would be exceedingly difficult for many, many people I know to follow. And just in general observation, I want to underscore what Mark Sussman said about the incredible importance of doing the connection across the river, and be a wonderful addition to Ward 7 with obviously tremendous teamwork behind it. My sense is, and I talked to people both in Ward 8 who were at an event which included Ward 7 residents there, and also the Ward 7 Senior Center informally, is I think the expectation of the average resident would be that this means the ability to get around Ward 7 more easily. And I think the focus has been to create a network to connect this route to other routes of the circulator, and certainly connecting to Union Station and the other across the river, meaning going west, is important. But I think the perception maybe of an average resident may be quite different about what the priority might have been. And so I just want to urge you to create a number of different presentations with far less detail that also help people to understand, as Ms. Torrellas has been explaining for Ward 7, why it's taken so long, and what are the reasons that the preferred route is going across the river and covering a smaller section of Ward 7. Again, it's public perceptions of what the return of the circulator might mean, and a lot of the technicalities and the realities of how you do this kind of planning.
Thank you, Heather. No, this is great feedback. This is one of the reasons I think, and it's not only me, it's DDOT as an agency has shifted to not only doing meetings like this, which are recorded and to provide just a broader information, right? And detail that individuals can go back to, but we have been having this office hours. And I think those offer a lot of that kind of one-on-one, how is this applicable to the individual, opportunity for them to ask those questions. We have also partly some work with you, but also other members of the community to make ourselves available to go out and speak to different groups and share the information that we have gathered, but also open it up for questions that might be specific to that particular audience. I do appreciate the feedback of thinking through also on even presentations, how that information is it's presented. I have been in conversations with Heather before, and really thanks for her advocacy. There's now a map of the route that it's more legible, I think, for communities that you know, might not be visually able to see a tiny streets and maps the way that we've been designing them. We're open to
Thank you for that.
feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, we're happy to discuss that. And one of the things I think throughout this process of transit development plans that we've been doing really since the beginning, that we gather a lot of great feedback from the community, is doing Meet the Rider events. And we're happy that we're back in that space where we can meet you at the stop or meet you in your community and share the information in person again. But thank you, Heather. And I think Molly has been tracking. I think you had the next person,
Yes.
Mr. Bartolo.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sure.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if we can work together to solve this problem. It's been going on for 4 years now. There's been several meetings. You've had some detailed plans. The ANC 6B seems to reject the plans. But maybe there's a way we can work through it, come to some kind of consensus on a plan so they don't get rejected when you present them. The route that you have now, where it has to make, and I've worked with some of them, people have suggestions. I'm not saying that my suggestion is the suggestion. It's just one of several suggestions. You guys probably have some ideas. Because I've spoken with the ANC members, and it just seems like there's a communication gap where you present something and they feel like they've been taken by surprise, and then they reject it, and then there's no back and forth. And so I'm just looking for a way to, if we can establish some kind of back and forth on a good solution, because you know this deadheading U-turn is quite inefficient, right? There are no riders. It takes at least 5 minutes to make that U-turn with no riders. And so it's not helping traffic any to have empty buses driving around. And as your report noted, the ridership of the Eastern Market Circulator is the lowest of all of them. And I've watched it. I mean, you can sit outside the DDOT building and look at the circulator. On average, it's got maybe one person on the bus, sometimes 0, sometimes 2 or 3. But I've never seen it have the same number of people that Metro buses have or that the other circulators have. So I'm just thinking, like, how can we work together on this? And because I feel like I make suggestions and then you're just dismissing them, and then that's it. And then 4 years go by and we still don't have a solution.
Yeah, so a couple of things. We didn't dismiss your suggestion. It was included, if you remember, on the transit development plan. We did include extending the route, basically as a loop. So it is documented as a possibility, which I think on the DDOT side, we were supportive to continue to explore that in the next TDP, which because of the pandemic, well, it's gonna happen next year because it's every 3 years, right? And we're a bit behind. However, the reality is that recommendation will require additional vehicles, and we are constrained in that, and I have shared that repeatedly because there's a couple of other recommendations that I know are desired by other sections of the city. We have
It's okay. I'm not married.
and
I'm not married to the loop. Okay. It was just
Okay.
one of several suggestions. Your suggestion was to do L Street, right? Seventh,
yes,
eighth, and
initial.
and
yeah.
that caught, and I'm just letting you know that caught the ANC 6B by surprise. You published it, you did make it public, but they were like, oh, it's buried in the transportation plan. And so they rejected it, and they got a bunch of people to write to you and reject that. Okay, so is there another plan? I'm not saying it has to be my plan. It can be your plan. I'd be supportive of your plan. I tried to make the point that your plan was a good plan. You just had to walk a few more blocks, which I don't view as a big deal. And I live near the Eastern Market Circulator, and I work near LaFont Plaza, but I never take it. And like your report says, there are 3 metros that will get me to LaFont Plaza, which is very close to the wharf. It's very close to where I work also, but I never ride it. I take the metro. Metro's a great system. Even with the 7,000 series buses, wheel situation, very low wait times. I mean, now I'm just like hopping on the metro. It's not even a problem. So I don't know. The circulator doesn't do anything for me, but I understand that some people ride it.
And I think it's a good recommendation to for us to go back and think of other strategies that we can then come back and present to the ANC. And I think that can be noted, just similar to this extension that we recommend in the future. Anything we do with this route as recommended, it is a route that it's low performing in terms of ridership, and that we definitely want to continue to work with the community to ensure that it's utilized by the most individuals possible. So we hear you, Mr. Bartolo. I think that as the next step for us is to go back to the drawing board and work with you and the ANC to revisit other solutions for an alternative turnaround point for the route.
I'm happy to
routing.
I'm happy to make that happen. So let's work together, because some of the ANC members have some suggestions. It doesn't have to be my suggestion. It can be your suggestion. Maybe there's a compromise. Maybe instead of turning on L Street, you go a little closer to Eastern Market. So it's just 2 blocks away. Well, the other thing is, it seems like these buses and other metro buses need locations to make U-turns, right?
Yeah.
The 90s and
make turnaround points.
Okay, turnaround points, right? And so you need to, I don't know what you need to do, but you probably need to broaden a few intersections so that the buses can make turnarounds. And I think that's all we're talking about. But it doesn't seem like when they do like there's the Penn Street project, and they're making all kinds of changes to Pennsylvania Avenue there, but it doesn't seem like there's any request to enhance the turnaround ability of the circulator, or I think the 96 bus has to go down and make a U-turn at 4th Street also. And that can't be very efficient either, right? And so that's another suggestion. It's and I don't think it would take much for a turnaround location. You probably just have to broaden some sidewalks and some curbs, right? so that the bus has a little more room in certain places. But it doesn't seem like, is there anywhere in the city where you've made accommodations for buses to make U-turns as part of a capital project? Or turnarounds? Like what
for
modification have you made to any intersection anywhere in the city to facilitate bus turnarounds?
My mind goes straight to the Woodley Park Ellens Morgan route around Woodley Park. There hasn't been modifications we can make to how that turnaround it's made capital wise, but definitely on how the traffic goes, so that we've moved stop bars, we've created dedicated space for the bus to lay over, coloring the asphalt, and establishing more coordination with the pedestrian crossings in and around that area. So that's a great recommendation, Mr. Bertel, and I think I will look into the Pennsylvania Avenue Improvement Project to see if there's opportunities there that could benefit this route.
I think you would have to initiate any opportunities. They're not going to come naturally, right? So you would have
Correct,
to put in,
yeah.
you would have to put in a request for a bus turnaround location. And look, I'm not blaming you guys because you guys put together a detailed plan to reverse the traffic flow on D Street.
Mhm.
And I saw your presentation. It seemed very detailed, right? You hired a firm to do all of this. And I don't know why the ANC rejected it. Because the existing situation cannot be better than what the plan that you put forward that they rejected. That's my opinion. So I'm not right. So I'm not faulting your
I know.
work. It's just there seems to be a miscommunication where well, anyways, I probably said enough. So let's just talk more and agree to work together.
Yes.
How about that?
Definitely. And bring along the ANC too.
I will. I'll do that. I'll reach out to them.
Okay.
So thank you very much for this office hour. You take care. Let's talk more soon.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay. Any other question or comment?
Gary Stoddard has their hand raised. You should now be unmuted, Gary.
I was calling, I'm sorry, not calling. I was wondering about the start time at the new Ward 7 route.
That's
Is it going to be a midnight or is it going to be a 9 p.m.?
so right now, when we did an initial estimate of the cost, it will mirror the Congress Heights Union Station route and Eastern Market routes ending at 9 p.m. Start time similar to all the other routes at 6 in the morning, I think, weekdays. That's kind of where we are right now, Gary. But we welcome feedback if those hours should be extended or reduced. I doubt reduction, but right, if they need to be different. One of the things that we're also working through is securing operating funding for the route. This is part of the mayor's budget. And so that also influences the funding availability, as well as feedback from the public. But right now it will mirror the times likely of the Congress Heights Union Station route.
Okay, I just was wondering why the most affluent communities in DC had bus service until midnight on every day of the week
Got it.
until 3 a.m. on the weekends. The
On
area,
on the weekends, yeah.
yes, the people that needed the least get it the most, and the people that needed the most get it the least. So people in Ward 7 and 8, they depend on DC Circulator. And so therefore, with that being said, it should mirror Woodley Park, Georgetown, DuPont Circle. They needed the most. So how the budget was constructed.
It's in. So we welcome the comments, Gary. Welcome the
Okay,
comments.
but also one more. During Sundays, when me and my coworkers drive the bus, and we always come up with the question, why they don't have a Sunday route, or why they don't have a holiday route, a holiday schedule, a Sunday schedule, holiday schedule, because of the buses bunch up at the end of the line. Because can you imagine on Thanksgiving morning, you got a bus every 10 minutes coming down King Street? It's
Yes.
not, we need a schedule to accommodate the low ridership and the low traffic. And so me and my coworker, we always wondering why you guys couldn't come up with a modified Thanksgiving schedule, a modified Memorial Day schedule, a Sunday schedule.
Yeah, and that's a great comment. I don't think it's so much the schedule, Gary, like for the public facing schedule, but it will be the internal runs, the schedule, how the runs are built. But this is a great feedback. So then you don't require that the same amount of vehicles for a holiday schedule, like you said, a holiday where there's federal government is closed or other government entities, so the demand is less. But this is great feedback. Yeah, I don't think it will so much impact the every 10-minute public facing schedule, but definitely how the runs are built for those days.
Okay, and the last thing, Eastern Market, when you said you call it a turnaround, and it's a challenge. You said neighbors complain about us sitting in their neighborhood. A lot of times, safety comes first, and so that particular area down by 4th Street is the safest place for us to wait until it's time for us to move forward because of the traffic at Eastern Market, because of the double park cars. When we make that U-turn at 4th Street, hopefully there's not a car on that corner where we have to go down to the next street or several blocks down to make the U-turn. And so I understand they don't want the buses in their community, but on the safety comes first. And so we have to find a place that's safest for us so we can pull that bus over and wait for it's time for us to move the bus. And so it's one more thing since I got your attention. On Stanton, Alabama,
Yeah.
going towards Congress Heights Metro. There's a credit union on that corner,
Yes.
and we have discussed this for about 3 or 4 years about how unsafe it is for us to make that right turn onto Alabama Avenue with cars parked right there going into that credit union. We have discussed this over and over again. They tell us put it in writing, put it in a safety box.
You don't have to do that. We're very aware.
So I just why
Yeah.
are we still discussing this
Um,
3-4 years later?
We've had challenge just in terms of enforcement in that area, and that's been the focus now for the DDOT safety team to enhance enforcement. But this is they send people out to enforce, but it's not consistent, and so it's trying to modify behavior. Some of the recommendations that have also resulted is trying to put obstruction in that area so people are not doing that, but then that doesn't help you, right? Us making the turn and trying to align the bus again. So it's a very think, difficult intersection that we need to figure out how to address that. Not only with enforcement, but also just how that intersection it's kind of laid out. It's definitely being looked at also by DDOT's like traffic safety team. They started initially, and I remember, if you remember, like a year or a year and a half ago, they start putting those ballards without talking to us, and you guys weren't like knocking them all out. And so we have to continue to work with them to develop, but for that particular section, which is the most difficult one, related to enforcement in front of that credit union, that's a challenge, and definitely a welcome comment for us to continue, say our team has been there, operators are telling us this, our TPDF, our contractor is telling us this. We need to come up with some solution or have ongoing enforcement on site for ticketing. DDOT, I think what I hear mostly from operators we've heard is really during the peak hours too, that's when it's happening, when school's getting out, and so it's like mostly in the afternoons. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you're correct. You're correct.
That's and so I'm like, can we focus then the enforcement during that period? In the afternoon, can we narrow down from this time to this time? Someone has to be there to literally not let people park.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
people, we move, change behavior of people park in the massive parking lot by the Giant and walk to the credit union. So yeah, we hear you.
Okay, so does fare evasion, is fare evasion a high priority on you guys' list? Because as a bus operator, you are aware of the fare
Mhm.
evasion that happens on the
Yeah,
bus, and so
I think
they ask us to state the fare. They was our we're not the police, so
no.
we state the fare. The fare is $1, but in order to have a peaceful and safe day, no one states the fare. So we keep driving the
Mhm.
bus. So, but you don't have any, and so other riders see
Mhm.
pe 10, 20, 30 people get on the bus, and other riders who normally would pay, now they begin to walk past the fare box. So it's
Mhm.
like a domino effect. It's a domino effect. It's very, it's even in uh, Georgetown route, the Woodley Park route, where it wasn't common, is becoming common now because they see other
Okay.
riders walking on without paying. So that has to be addressed.
Yes, and we need data, Gary. So I need you to keep pressing that button that that says, rider is there, but the money is not. So so then we can quantify that impact and share it with the mayor. This is a national issue, not mainly in big cities like us, New York, where we see this uh, in an ongoing basis. There's our primary concern is to keep the operator safe. That's why we tell you state the fare, but you don't push it. But it's critical that you note it as a rider that didn't pay, right? And that we have that data to understand the magnitude of the issue.
Okay, well, I think that's it.
Great.
So, all right. Good talk.
Any other? Thank you.
I can't think of anything else, but I'm sure I will once the
Okay.
meeting is over.
You can call us up and put it in the comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from me? Okay, we're about 3 minutes to 8:30, which will conclude our meeting. I wanted to take the opportunity just for those that remain or are watching on video to show you where you can provide us with your comments or learn more about this study and proposed changes. So you go on our website. This is our sliders. The website is www.dccirculator.com. Very easy to access. You can either wait for the slider to show up proposed service changes, or you can go right here to About Us and also go to 2020 TDP and find the document and information there. We'll go right here, post changes on the slider, learn more. And here you can find all the information on the service changes. We have a really cool feature of call it the jump. So you can jump to the section you know if you're ready for comments, or if you need information on special accommodations during virtual meetings or when we're having these meetings, you can go there. Here has a summary of what the proposed changes. A lot of that is shared in this presentation, but here you have more detail. You can click on the maps and make them really big and look at them. You have more information that Jared alluded to regarding the Ward 7 route and proposed locations, as well as potential other transfers to other transit amenities, whether that's Metro Rail, Metro Bus, or Intercity Rail and Intercity Bus. That's on Union Station. You have some of the specific amenities of schools and rec centers and of the community that are a quarter of a mile of our stop or proposed stop. And this is the Union Station one that shares a lot of the other information on connections. Here you have the proposed changes for Georgetown Union Station route with all the stops, again, with a map that you're able to click on, and you can expand or decrease and be able to, really see what is that we're proposing to eliminate or keep. And then here is all the information on the comment period, as well as the remaining virtual hours, like I mentioned earlier, on Saturday, September 17, and then next Wednesday, September 21st. You can also request for us to attend a community meeting. If you want us to attend, where you call our DC Circulator office number 202-671-2020, and they will connect you with someone from our project team, and we will make those arrangements. If it's not me, it could be Spring or Jared or someone else from the project team that was involved in the process. These are some of the ANC meetings, and particularly in Ward 7 that we've been attending. We have another meeting tomorrow for ANC 7B, and then one on September 20th at ANC 7F. Left, but we're happy to attend any other ANC meeting. Here's the information if you need any assistance for any of the office hour meetings, as well as where to provide the comments. So here you can provide the comments, your information, your ward. If you have questions on what does that ward mean, it's the different areas of the city, how they're divided. So you can check there, and we'll take you to a map, and you can see, oh, I'm in Ward 7 or 8 or 5. Reason why you're contacting, we've limited them to the 2 proposed changes, but that doesn't, you can pick one and talk about something else. Like if it's a general service recommendation like we've heard tonight. And then you submit and it will come to us. So with that said, I would like to thank everyone that made the time to be here tonight or watch our presentation. We are very happy to be sharing all the details with you and look forward to continuing to hear more comments and feedback. Thank you and have a great evening.